Welcome to the Audio Insider Podcast from Exponent. My name is Lenny Florentine, and today I have with me Charles Kermis from Kermis Audio, where you have some of the most amazing record cleaning machines, which I don't even know if that's what we are calling them. Me and Charles have actually had a little bit of history because whenever we do shows, we end up right next to each other all the time. So you may have seen him at Exponent or other audio shows in the coat. You guys wear the doctor coat because you're here to fix everybody's records and clean up the vinyl. But what is up, man? How are you?
I'm just doing great, Lenny, and it's an honor that first of all, Exponent put this all together. Thanks to you. I mean, I've been following you since day one, and I'm a vintage guy. I'm totally analog, and things are just great. It's nice to have a month and a half of no trade shows, so you can get caught up and make a mess out of the office and out of the house, instead of the laundry that my wife gets after a week out.
And when you're taking the break from trade shows, I'm traveling all over the place and filming all this stuff, and we're doing these podcasts, every week, and it's a lot of excitement. So it's like Exponent is the main event, it's coming up.
Absolutely. We'll be there.
You've been doing this since 2017.
Yeah, that's right. We started selling our record restoration system. So if you use the word cleaner, it's $20 donation to the American Red Cross. Okay.
See, I caught myself in the intro.
I know.
Saying that, and I'm like, that is not the word that he's going to use, and I know this is like taboo almost, so I better change what I'm saying. So I just brought it down a notch, got back on track, and handed it over to you.
Yeah, you want to see Shane Stevenson's Aussie audio files bill. He had to spend 100 Aussie dollars over as a donation to the Australian Red Cross. Now he catches me doing it.
You got to watch out. So a lot of people have vinyl collections, like big collections, small collections, whatever it is. I'm curious, before we kind of get into everything, what makes a record get dirty? So if we're just like going, it's sitting on the shelf in the sleeve, nothing's happening to it, like over time or other factors, but like what in general, like, because somebody could just say, my whole collection's in sleeves, it's fine, I can just put it on the turntable and we're done.
Well, that's a very, very good point, and I think we need to go back a bit and just appreciate the vinyl itself. Okay, and then we can understand why we're seeing certain things with records that we haven't even played for 20 years or 10 years. These records are obviously made out of a stamper. So here we have a stamper, side B, and we have a stamper, side A, and these things are in machines, and we have an injected piece of plastic that's made into a biscuit shape that drops onto the label, by the way, of a record. And then we see another label, say side B, fall onto this biscuit, and where the stamper for side B, then with pressure and temperature, sees a record pop out. Now, this is where the problems start with records. If you remember back for those of you that are like me, old folk, I'm 68, I've been a nerd in audio since 1966, building my own amps and speakers. There was a V15 Mark IV cartridge that Shure came out with.
Actually saw one of these the other day. I got one of I don't know if you remember the Pioneer rack.
Yes.
And not the smaller ones, like the full-size store display. So I bought one of these the other day. And at the bottom of that rack, I was filming the video, and there was a box for a Shure, like, whatever. There's so many.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And it, you opened up the package, and it was this beautiful red felt, casing and all this stuff. And I thought it was the coolest thing, because I've seen a lot of the V15s, but I don't know that I've seen a 4.
Mm-hmm.
At least with the case, like brand new. So it was like a treasure find at the bottom of this, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. So what happened in 1970? 74, 75, I actually worked on weekends at audio stores in downtown Montreal. And I earned all of my Macintosh, my C26, MC125. I'm going through my list, my MR78, my MPI4 oscilloscope, I have my Nakamichi Dragon, I got my Akai 747, all earned selling audio equipment. And I was selling the V15 Mark IV, and they started coming back. And this is, what happened is the Shure brothers then came out with the Mark V, which became the industry standard for the Library of Congress. And when Shure finally left the business because no one wanted to build cartridges anymore, everyone's dead, all the old folk are gone, the Library of Congress apparently bought the last 10,000 of them, like back in 2019. Long story short, let's kind of move to today's date. Shure found, and I found a document based in 1977 where Shure called problems coming back with these V15 Mark IVs where the needles were getting dirty. The styluses were picking something up. And they originally thought, give the customer a brand new cartridge and, we'll send all the defective ones back to our shop, back to our factory. Well, they found out that there's a pressing oil. So the reason why these records pop out of a press is because they termed it a pressing oil that comes out that allows the record to pop out, and it's a coating that's on the record. And records normally come out when they're about 135 degrees or so, depending on the mix of the PVC. And those famous pops that we hear in brand new records are dirt and dust that land onto the groove and get fused into the cooling oil. And they did a study in 77 where none of the cleaning processes or cleaning methods could not remove this. So the Mark V came out, solved the problem because the size and the dimensions and the cut of the stylus has changed. But for those that bought the Mark IV, they supplied you with a little brush that you put on the tone arm. And if you go onto the Shure's website in their historical documents section, you'll see in 1978 the Mark IV being sold with this little brush attachment because they thought they were trying to keep the needle clean so that the needle doesn't pick up a lot of materials that it was digging out as the record was spinning.
You just like educated me beyond what I planned, right? I didn't know that the Library of Congress bought all these cartridges. I didn't know about the oils, right? And the reason why they came out with the 5 over the 4, like and there's that brush on the tips of all of these cartridges.
Yep.
So now that explains what that is, because I just thought it was to get the dust off before the needle hit it, but I am wrong once again, as normal. And and I'm just getting a slew of interesting facts from you because, just seeing one the other day, now it makes a lot of sense. That's crazy. So there's these oils on the records, and this is still a thing. This is still how they're made.
This is still a thing. New records, old records. And if everyone that bought records back in the 70s during the oil crisis, 76, my dad got a Chevy Chevette, 1.6 liter Rally. I loved it. He had a Nova before. I wish he kept the Nova and gave me the Nova and not getting rid of the Nova and the Chevette. But we had the oil crisis. So David Middleton, who was the chief engineer for EMI Capitol Records in Mississauga, Ontario, told me at the Toronto Audio Fest in 2019 that first he was responsible for chopping up records during the oil crisis with the label and the ink to create more records because they did not want to increase the price of the records. And in making these biscuits, the mix is no longer pure PVC with carbon. They had to use other liquefiers, solidifiers, stabilizers, so the records would pop out still, but they sounded horrible. So the 70s, late 70s, mid 70s to early 80s, some of the records sound horrible because they have a worse coating on the record, more pressing oil. And everyone's forgotten about that since 1978 until me showing up in 2017 where it's a release agent. And I did not know about the Shure project until I visited the Library of Congress by accident about 5 years ago, where I found all the slides they made showing all the different cleaning methods: mechanical dry, vacuum dry, chemical dry, or chemical clean and dry, and they all left residues. They actually hid the pops because the needle now was riding higher, but the more you play the record, the pops are back. And we found a method of removing the oils.
So is this something? So maybe I'm thinking of this in the wrong light. So is this restoration system something that you recommend people doing when they buy an album?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love RTI records. Here's a plug for RTI. I love RTI records. I use a spectrum analyzer at all these trade shows. You bring a record for me to restore. You buy a brand new record, MoFi, Quality Sound, whatever. We will restore them. And we take a measurement before of the signal output of the cartridge and a measurement after restoration. And we also measure the frequency before and frequency after. And because there is this release agent, as I call it, pressing oil that Shure called it, I have with RTI, they're always consistent. 1.3 to 1.4 dB gain over floor from the cartridge and 8% increase in frequency response and tone. And that's where music is, tone. Other new pressings, they're all over the map. 8 dB, 18 dB, 18% more. They're all over the map, just as are vintage records. So if you buy a new record and you truly want to feel the imagery, the tone, the emotion of the artist, the sound stage, the timbre, it's to remove the pressing oil, to
Wow.
remove the release agent. So your needle now is playing the stamper.
Wow. I would have never even known that.
And I had these great discussions with Mr. Michael Fremer, where he said, "You're full of shit. Who the is Kermis?" I worked on the space shuttle. I invented digital video audio recording for surveillance industries and whatever. I've done a lot of things.
Yeah, just worked on a space shuttle. That's all.
Yeah. When I was 21 years old,
Wow.
nerd. Nerds rule, right? So I had to show Mr. Fremer basically what's in a record's groove. I bought a $178,000 microscope. You can see it all the way. The picture on the right-hand side here shows what a groove looks like with dust that's fused into the pressing oil. And the lens alone, this is $78,000. It's made by the Keyence Corporation of Japan.
Wow.
No one in this industry has spent the money to show what is in the record's groove. People take these $99 USB cameras and show a 2D picture. You cannot see what's in the groove. If you speak to J.R. Boisclair from Wally Tools and Wham Engineering, he talks about sub-micron detail that is in the stamper that has been pressed into the record that is hidden by an oil. So between removing the oil, release agent, and having a stylus now and a cartridge that's properly aligned, zenith error tracking and whatever, we get as close to the cutting. And he, in fact, has found that many of the cutting lathes and whatever are also not accurate, including the test records. So we had to prove this.
So if this is how they come when they're new,
Yes.
what does it look like 10 years, 20, 30 years after that? Like what like now I'm thinking about, like, I just bought this new record and I just think it's absolutely perfect, but it's not.
Yep.
But what about the ones that have been sitting around for 40 years?
Well, very good. Well, we have three things that I look at removing outside of the dust and whatever. So to answer your original question, when you have a record before you play it, use a 10 micron fiber parastatic felt brush to remove the dust. Okay? You don't have to buy anything, just remove the dust. Why do we want to remove the dust? It's to keep your needle clean, but also if you have dirt, dust, dandruff that has fallen onto the record and the pressing oil has not been removed, the heat of the needle, which is about 1200 degrees, heats up that oil that's still present and may create more pops. So you want to use a parastatic felt to remove the dust so that the needle does not pick up anything and we don't create any new pops in the record by heating of the oil with contaminants landing on it. Okay? So that's normal. That's not what we do as a process. That's what everyone should do. And also use a wet cleaner that does not have any alcohol in it, just on the tip of the needle to remove whatever has come onto the record, from the record, I should say, onto the needle. That's good practice. So Now we have a record that's in a sleeve for 10 minutes or 10 years or 20 years. Plastic has a plasticizer inside, okay? The plasticizer outgasses. What does that mean? Well, if you buy a new car, we love that new car smell, right? But when we take a look at the windshield, or the windscreen as the people in Europe call it, there's a film on it. All the plastics in your car are outgassing, and they're creating that film that I have a hard time removing, but my wife is great at cleaning the windshield, okay, on the inside of the car. So think of a record in a sleeve for 10, 20 years. Think what happens if you have a PVC sleeve with the record inside. They're both adding a film to the record. In fact, sometimes you'll see herringbone design or like a coating on the record, and that's where both the sleeve and the record, perhaps the record was inserted too hot in the sleeve, they've outgassed and created that film. So our process removes it. So if you think of playing a record, you're now not only playing the record where you had the pressing oil, you have that outgassing of the plasticizer, and then we also have, added to that, everyone thinks a record that's shiny is great. They buy all these potions, they buy all these machines, whether they be vacuum, whether they be ultrasonic, whether they're real ultrasonics or not. They apply a coating. I measure it. I can prove what is being deposited on the record, and I can prove what we've removed by using our process. So new records, vintage records, they are in fact durable because of all the recording medias. Hard drive crash, it's gone. You scratch a CD, DVD, audio, video, gone. Records you can scratch, you'll hear a tick, but you'll still hear the music. So in essence, new records need restoration, and old records are my favorite. And you mentioned new records. I only buy new records from new artists or new songs from current artists, but I do not buy the remasters. A lot of the remasters, as we all know, many of them are digitally engineered, or they were never analog because we had the fire at the Universal, and stampers and tapes are all gone. I love going to the Goodwill stores in the expensive neighborhoods. I'm over 65, half price on Tuesdays here in Denver at ARC thrift stores, and I buy the originals records. And this is the nice part. People say the records have scratches on them. So what? 2/3, if not 90% of the time, those scratches are not on the plastic. They are on the film of the outgassing of the plasticizer of the record being in a sleeve for 50 years. So that's why you now see a following of Kermis. You can see it on Discogs, where folks say, I have restored a record with the Kermis process, and they fetch more money. We have record resellers at all these fairs. You know, we talk about the audiophiles. You know, we have 5,000 people that show up at Expona and we're happy, right? Here in Denver, we had 15,000 people that showed up at a record fair. People from all across Western states have brought their records. We had 100,000 records for sale. And VMI was VMP was one of the people that sponsored it. We were there, and these folks buy records, whether they're new or not. Mostly they're all vintage. And I tell them, even if they're scratched, buy them, and then come by our booth and we will restore it. 7 times out of 10, or 90% of the time, those scratches are all gone.
So what does the process look like? Like, so you have the machine, but
Yes.
what is like the machine doing, like process wise, to get this? Because like I didn't even know this was a thing. Okay, I have no idea. We've talked about it over the years because we've known each other for a long time, but usually it's in busyness going on in the shows and everything's crazy, and it's kind of like, you know, you do this. I had a record cleaned by you at some point, and I don't remember. You know,
$20.
Yeah.
Restore.
I didn't say it was at the end of that word.
Rewind.
So I had a record restored by you at one point, and I do remember that. But I didn't really know the whole process or how this was thinking. So what is the process in the restoration machine?
Well, here again, I got involved. This my hobby of loving music and having my stereo, as I call it, two channel, if you want to call it as that. I just love vinyl, and I have used every single cleaning machine, every cleaning solution out there for 60 years, and yeah, they hide some of the clicks and pops, and they all come back afterwards. You know, I had Lafayette Electronics, Radio Shack Shack liquids, Thorens liquids, sprays, you name it. I put it on my records, and they were really coated. They were shiny, and in those days, I liked the boom, boom, boom. Now I like the vocals and the emotion. So, long story short, in order to remove the three things, actually, the four. First, the dust with a brush. Then, before you play the record, you want to restore it. So, we will remove the cleaning films left over by other cleaning processes, either air or vacuum dried.
How often do you recommend using the restoration machine?
Once in a lifetime. Once in a lifetime.
You only have to use it once on each album.
Only once. Yeah, because I've removed all the three elements. And how do we do it? If you use these liquids, you know, and I am a fervent supporter of spin clean. You know, the little yellow thing where you put the record in, you turn it around. Yeah. Only use the distilled water. Don't use the chemicals. If you use any chemical on a record, you'll need to see the ingredients, and the ingredients need to be checked against the PVC chemical compatibility chart and the plasticizer compatibility chart to make sure that you're not damaging the record. No ingredients, don't use. I love the spin clean because I use I do use distilled water, and I'm using a mechanical drying, okay? The mechanical drying actually does something. However, we cannot remove the plasticizer film. We cannot remove what's in the groove, the pressing oil, because the water droplets of any liquid are larger than the record groove. Record groove is 6 microns on the bottom, U-shape, 35, 45, 50 microns on the top. It changes with the type of music, the sound of music. Water droplets are 100 to 120 microns in depth, in width, I should say. You can't get into the groove. So what we've developed is we have created a system where we use ultrasonics to create bubbles. And there are ultrasonic machines, and Mr. Fremer has done a lot of tests with them. Shane has seen records that were processed by other ultrasonics and then put in our machine. None of the cleaning processes really work, whether it's vacuum or ultrasonic, because the record has a negative charge, and water, with or without a soap added, has a negative charge. So they repel. So my recipe is applying a spray to the record, using a brush, apply and induce a charge, a temporary charge in the record, to apply positive to it. The record is negative. Now I put it into our cavitation machine that operates at 35 kilohertz, which has a bubble that ultrasonics, when they create bubbles, these bubbles rise and they collapse. And they create a vacuum. It's an implosion. It's not hitting the record. So by now changing the charge of the record, these bubbles rise in the water and they're attracted to the record. And as they implode, they suck materials out. So now, as my record turns in my machine, the charge eventually wears off. So in the first spin, I remove the films left over from all these other cleaning systems and chemicals, all the shines and whatever that people have put on the record to make more money in selling a shiny record. We take the record out, we shake off any excess water, we apply a second application, we now put it back in the machine, we now remove that the outgassing of the plasticizer, whether it was the record and the sleeve. The charge dissipates. We then do 3 or 4 total cycles where we then now remove the release agent, the pressing oil, which also releases any of the dirt, dust particles at the pressing plant that got fused into the oil. So that's what we use. And unfortunately, I'm very disruptive. And I have proven that many of the machines that are out there that are called ultrasonics do not use cavitation. My test with Mr. Fremer in 2017 was an aluminum foil record. Put it in my machine, you should see even cavitation from the edge of the record to the dead wax area. He said, Charles, you and your rabbit and your white coat, who the hell are you? Literally BS. Okay, so I bought this for Mr. Fremer, $10,000 ultrasonic cavitation meter. And I put it in all the machines that are out there to see whether they cavitate or not, create bubbles or not. His machine that he had, it's a bubbler. We now call it, it's not a bubbler. A new Kermes phrase, it's a bubbler. Makes bubbles, does not do cavitation. Well, some people thought this was hokey. So then a $28,000 tester was bought 3 years ago that allows me to plot in an ultrasonic where the bubbles are, where the cavitation is, measure the frequency, and when people are buying ultrasonics, you ask what is the ultrasonic rating in cavins, C-A-V-I-N-S, or watts per square centimeter. Not watts. Watts is the current consumption. So we've proven that 9 out of 10 machines out there are not cavitating. And you hear words of 35 kilohertz, 120 kilohertz, 25 kilohertz. Basically what an ultrasonic is basically a tank with a speaker on the bottom that creates an audio signal. And the audio signal vibrates the plate. The water is making contact with the plate and it creates a bubble. And depending on the frequency, the size of the bubbles are different. The cavitating bubble. So, what do we have in a record? 6 microns on the bottom, 35, 40, 50 microns on the top, and dirt and dust are 3 to 5 microns. Plus we have an oil. 25 kilohertz ultrasonics, they're the noisy ones you see at the shows. Stainless steel tank, whatever. Some of the manufacturers have a cover on it. They are good to remove oil. The bubble size is good for oil at 25 kilohertz. Not to remove 3 to 5 microns of dirt, dust, fungus, and the oil. At the extreme, 120 kilohertz. Very, very small, fine bubble. Yes, we have submicron detail in here, which in theory, if you didn't have any coatings on it, would work. It doesn't work because at 120 kilohertz, the bubble is so small, it has a hard time removing the oil off the surface, and it has a hard time also removing the 3 to 5 microns. The 35 kilohertz with a resonance, we also want a resonance of 70 kilohertz that I do so that we have even cavitation. We don't see holes in this aluminum foil record. So that means that we have even cavitation.
You only have to do this one time. So like when I think of cleaning records, I just think it's going to be a constant chore over time of having to use these, like I've used the spin clean, right? And you got to go like this, and you got to, and even the ones that rotate around, you still got to do all this over and over and over and over and over and over through time. Yes. And like, how long does your process take, just like in time, to
records
to restore one record?
Yeah, records. Well, we do 2 LPs at a time. A new record is 18 to 23 minutes fixed time.
Okay, so 18 to 23 minutes, about 20 minutes to restore a record.
A brand new record.
Yeah, a brand new record.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could take longer maybe with a vintage record.
Yeah, a vintage record is about 20 to 25 minutes, correct.
Okay, so either way, you're looking at if you're using one of the other record cleaners, it might take 5 or 10 minutes, but then you got to do that over and over and over and over and over time. You're going to spend a lot more time cleaning one record, and like once you restore them, you're done. You get the surface stuff in the future and stuff, but like you're really done with that. Where if you go, and I had talked to people who want to use record cleaners on their entire collection, let's say 1,000 records, right? Whatever. It's a fairly large collection, I guess. I'm sure there's way bigger, but in theory, so that's going to take you 5 to 10,000 minutes to do that, and then you're going to put them all back in the sleeves. Mm-hmm. And you may not play any of these records over the next year. I mean, a few, but like in theory, with 1,000, you're not playing 1,000, and then you're just going to have to do it again. And
Yeah,
that's
and
just,
all you're doing is you're just removing the surface materials. You're not
yeah.
removing the materials that are impeding the needle picking up the detail of the stamper.
I mean, for me, the reason I currently don't own any type of record cleaner, restorer, anything is because I don't have the time
Hmm.
to do that. Now, I don't have 1,000 records. You know, I have a collection, that have probably never been cleaned, restored, anything like that. But the reason I've never bought a cleaner for myself, and I've had them in the past, is I don't have time to sit and go through and clean my collection. And now, if I had to do it once, that's fine. But like, I know that I'm going to have to do it multiple times, and I'm like, well, why am I even going to do it the first time? Because it's going to take me forever, and I don't have time. Knowing that I could just do it one time and just now we're good. Time is money. And in the thought process of like, I do a lot of things, and to be only able to do it just once would save me so much time. Like that has got to be something that people are just loving about
Yeah.
the restoration system.
Well, even more so, it's the benefit of the bargain, as they say. What do you have as a turntable? What are you running right now?
I am running
And a
a
cartridge.
Audio Technica LP8X, which is Audio Technica's newest turntable. It's a wonderful turntable. Has an auto lift, which is what I love. I love
I love it. Yep.
I love that stuff, and I am running it through a Parasound JC3 Junior phono preamp, and I'm about to upgrade to the JC3 Plus because the system that I set up this weekend, because I go around the country if somebody buys a big system, and I'll personally like set it up for them, right? And I set up using the JC3 Plus, which is Parasound's like top of the line phono preamp designed by John Curl, and I was just like blown away. And I've used it like a time or two in the past, but I've never really sat down with that one and listened to it for hours like I do like with my Junior. And I was like, okay, now I need to get this. So I'm gonna be upgrading to that, which gets even more detail and that sound nuances out that you're talking about.
So what cartridge? What cartridge? by
So
the way?
I have a V because I have not graduated to moving coil yet. Okay, we have some moving coils, but I typically am using the Audio Technica VM750 or the VM760. Excellent moving magnet. Like for most people, like if you're not getting the moving coil, these are some of the best cartridges that I have heard. I love this. Something about this series is just amazing.
I have the same cartridge. At the shows, you even see me running just an Ortofon Red MM
Yeah.
because I'm afraid of someone taking my tone arm and damaging the needle. So then I don't have anything to demonstrate.
Right. Oh, if I show you, I frequently go up to Audio Technica. I love those guys. But this is, I don't know if you can see it. This is a stylus display that shows all of the stylus shapes, right? And even if,
Yep.
so if the tip's diamond, the tip is diamond.
Yes.
But if the whole thing's diamond, the whole thing is diamond. Then it shows the different shapes. And then on the back, if you can see in the lighting because it's dark, it actually has like a simulated record groove for each one. So you can see exactly how it fits in the groove.
Yep.
So, I love those.
So here's the deal. You start restoring the records that you want to listen to first. And something that I wanted to add is the proof of restoration versus cleaning. The record comes out virtually dry out of a proper restoration system. And there's only one, unfortunately, it's mine. Why do records come out dry versus the spin clean that you have to wipe wet?
And
or
not
you
only
need-
dry, but with less shine.
Well, all of these systems and all of these people that are much smarter than me, that are much larger companies than my company, no one studied the record. A record has the same charge as water, so it should repel water. If you have a system that needs air drying, vacuum drying, extensive sheets of water with manual drying, you haven't done anything to the record. And I have down in the shop a static tester to test the charge of water, to test the charge of the record, to see what I do. So all
Do
of
you
this
find
is
that after you restore them, you have less static charge to the records?
Absolutely,
Because like a person like me, I'm a very statically charged person, and I don't know if that has to do with my energy levels or whatever it is. But whenever I touch anything, I'm getting the charge. And especially like I've used record weights that have taken the charge out of the records, which I
Yes.
thought was the wildest thing. MoFi makes the super heavyweight champion, and I'm like, again, it's one of those things where you're like, this is a, I don't know, $500 record weight. Like, come on. But then when I used it, it took the pops out of the record. Like, it was kind of wild. Does it get rid of this, that static charge?
Yes.
Because I'll get zapped when I even touch those weights. Like, when I'm done, I get zapped.
Yep. Our ionizing spray actually is called also a static reducer. So what we do is we remove all the materials that create the static, because remember, a restored record is negative, it's not positive. So in effect, we also reduce the static. And that's our last process in the machine, where we apply the propanediol 1-2-178 as a mist onto our goat-haired brush, and then it dries immediately on the brush, but we induce that charge onto the record to reduce static as well. But getting back, you're only going to be restoring, first of all, the records that you want to hear. And we have people that have, like Dave Brubeck's, the originals. We hear two instruments that we've never heard, because now you're actually playing the stamper, in essence.
That is amazing. That is,
Yeah.
I'm so interested. I hope that everybody goes and tries this out, at Expona, and they get to experience
Bring a record in. Bring a record in.
There's going to be a lot of record vendors at Expona this year, and so grab a record. Now they're going to be cleaned, and then bring it over and try it out. Try the restoration service out. It's going to be amazing. And what an exciting product. I didn't know any of this in the many years that we've known each other. And I learned so much today. I really thank you for coming on. It was an amazing time.
Well, I'm really appreciative of Expona and of you of allowing us industry types to actually have a chat. Trade shows are worse. We're, in and out. You can see us at many of our dealers. We actually host Music Matter events with other manufacturers like Margulis and Hagel and Avaya Blue and so on, where we have 40, 50 people that come in, they bring records in, and we have a dozen people that leave with machines because they hear, see, and feel. Go on our website, kermisaudio.com, Kermis Audio's YouTube channel, and we have little snippets we've taken a cell phone, we have a spectrum analyzer where we play music in sync with the spectrum analyzer before and after, and you can see what we do to records.
And I'll make sure I put that in the description as well, so you guys can go check that out.
The last thing is, those tone arm skids that we've always done? 7 times out of 10, I won't hear that tick every revolution, because the needle now is in its pocket. I'll still see the scratch. So that's why we're changing or trying to change the way we grade records. Right now, it's using the Peterson scale or the Goldstein scale. I think I'm probably making an error with the last name.
You're talking to the wrong person. I have no idea. But couldn't we, I am not in, the record grading business. I couldn't even imagine having to do that.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of friends that own record stores and do that. And wouldn't it be just easier if you could just say it's Kermis graded and then that's it?
Yes. Yeah. What I'm pushing is where we use the 2 letters, not just one. It's not just VG minus, which combines the look and the sound. We have VG for look, and then VG, the second letter, for the sound. And people on Discogs say restored by Kermis, and they understand that. Because I can have a totally scratched looking record that sounds NG, brand new.
I go to a lot of record stores around the country. I mean, all the time. Touring them and checking them out and meeting the owners and just hearing the stories and everything like that. And it would be so interesting. I see a lot of them do have cleaning machines of various brands that, because they're all running it through something. But, it'd be amazing if they all had something like this and they, it just would make their life easier.
Yeah, that's the issue that we see, unfortunately, where a lot of these folks are not audiophiles and they think a shiny record is great. Some of the stores we caught here in Denver using lighter fluid just to get more money because we've hidden the scratch.
No.
So the record folks that know us, Memphis Records and whatever, people that come to Denver from across the country selling their records, they can make $300 to $500 a record. They know their titles. So they'll take 3 or 4 records, restore it, it pays for the machine.
That is amazing. Oh, we'll
Yeah.
have,
So
hopefully
we got
some
to
of
talk
the.
about offline on that because that's a market that we have not catered to, and you're visiting all these folks.
I visited at least 8 stores this week in Columbus, Ohio, Indianapolis, Indiana, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Pittsburgh. I'm
Hmm.
all over the place in touring.
Yep.
So, but coming up, it's going to be
Yep.
Chicago, and we'll probably, I don't know how much time I'll have in Chicago because it's going to be a busy week for
You
me.
won't have any.
I won't. I'm going to try to get up there early and get to enjoy a little bit. But for people coming out, if you've never been to Expona, it's just an amazing time. And not only can you see stuff at the show, but there is, a lot of great food around town. There's great stuff to do. But we hope to see everybody there. Charles, thank you for joining us today on the Audio Insider podcast. What an amazing time. I got to talk like none, but that's, I expected to learn and I did. So that's okay. I'm okay with that. I talk all day.
Well, thank you very much. And for Expona, it really is the home run show for us every year. The activities we have, concerts and whatever. Stay for the events and stay for the after hour visits. And I'll tell you, very well organized. Everyone's out there to help you to where to go. It is the premier show in North America, and not taking away from any of the other shows that we do. But we have the Munich show, and then we have Expona for the people that want to go, especially the dealers and distributors that are looking for new products to handle.
It's going to be an
That do
amazing
come.
time.
The camaraderie is just wonderful.
It's always an amazing time. We're going to have some fun. But for the Audio Insider podcast, we will see you next time.
Cheers.